So my name is Alex Pedraza. I'm the VP of Business Development for Jubilee Royalty LLC. We're based in New York, and I manage our business development team, and I handle our investor relations. So this is going to be a bit of a forward-looking case study as we are wireframing a plan to tokenize future securities interests, future partnership interests, and future individual titles to mineral properties as we kind of continue our journey as an emerging fund. So a bit about our partnership. We are a private partnership that offers diversified exposure to real subsurface property in proven resource basins here in the United States. In other words, we invest in oil and gas, specifically producing and non-producing leases. So we essentially step in and take the place of the rightful property owner. What this provides is straight line yield exposure to production in an industry over a century old. We also facilitate individual private partnerships with single entities like family offices or individuals who are seeking some other form of tailored ownership. Despite various opinions in our sector, there are consistencies that make mineral ownership a safe harbor compared to equities, particularly in volatile times. And from a partnership sense or a private partnership sense, we really do provide about the clearest and cleanest exposure you can get to the sector. We're not muddied by high G&A, PP&E. We don't do any kind of debt obligations. So it's very clean and clear-cut subsurface real estate exposure. And that's exactly what it is, right? You can't feel it or see it or touch it on the surface, but we are a true subsurface real estate partnership. So to discuss our investors, specifically our current investors, it's diverse. So we're primarily invested in here in the United States. This includes everyone from West Coast tech executives to South Texas oil and gas families to small advisory firms on the Eastern Seaboard. But most of our current investors are 50 plus years old, a lot in retirement or coming up on retirement. And everyone is bought into Jubilee for the same consistent reasons, yield plus upside, again, a safe harbor in volatile times. Although our investor base is pretty diverse, we gain the most interest, I would say, from those with an understanding of our space and sector and potentially a more conservative mindset. But that aside, as of late, the volatility and the rising fear in public markets has played in our favor with prospects outside of that dominant profile. Several of those outliers are now current investors who had maybe not considered private placements or fossil fuels before. And our team is of the belief that with omni-channel positioning and a suite of educational informations, our future offerings can garner interest from younger and more tech-savvy investors seeking alternative means of wealth preservation and growth. I do want to touch on kind of the state of private placements, private partnerships like ours. We're aware that we're in a lesser known but expanding realm. Participation in partnerships like ours requires an open mind, a high degree of trust, and many partnerships, including ours, require accredited investor status for participation. This presents a barrier to entry and adoption by new investors. So we would say, though, that alternative investments are garnering new and increased interest from seasoned investors, particularly, again, those looking for wealth preservation and growth. We've seen a lot of fear and uncertainty lately in public markets, and this has been a driving force for new investors and more consideration within our partnership. So as such, in response to this and understanding how the landscape is changing, creating greater ease of access for new investors is particularly important to us. Tokenization of our future interests is the ideal means of improving this access, and of course, by virtue promoting and adopting, this asset class among younger and newer alternative investors. So since I'm on the business development front, I wanted to talk about current marketing mediums and channels. We are an emerging fund, so we're most akin to a startup company. We've consistently looked for and employed the lowest cost, highest efficiency systems and activities to promote our fund. So cold calling is kind of dead. It's a thing of the past. I actually managed a team of 6 summer interns that reached out to roughly 6,000 accredited investors, which probably yielded 100 new prospects over the course of 2 months. Calls are best suited for after interest has been garnered. So our web presence is actually supplemented by a series of markets discussions where our internal team kind of discusses different asset classes and what we're sort of seeing going on. And as we've continued to promote those series and our organization, we've seen a steady uptick in inbound via our website. LinkedIn has also been a dominant driver for us in terms of garnering investor interest. So what have we learned after a year spent raising 2 funds? Nothing beats the speed and the access of the internet. Like I said, calls are best suited for after initial interest has been garnered. Time is precious, especially among a small team. And moreover, the birth of digital private securities markets provide a brand new landscape where we can position ourselves early to continue passively promoting our fund and establishing our brand among a younger, more tech-enabled audience. This also, tokenization also creates greater ease of access and transacting for both our current and our future investors. And I think the biggest takeaway is that inbound is not synonymous with impossible. We're of the belief that choosing your systems and your channels wisely and dedicating the necessary time it takes to optimize them will yield results in perpetuity. So to get to the forward-looking Jubilee tokenization project, we see this as a high-speed, low-drag effort that can really separate us from a lot of other partnerships of the like. As we continue to establish a track record and promote our future offerings, our team is working on a wireframe plan to tokenize a percentage of our future fund offerings via Ravencoin with the help of DigiShares. So I'll kind of take an hypothetical question, right? If our sector is dated, right? And if our sector is resistant to change, why would we tokenize? Access is a huge driver, both by virtue of being discoverable on digital markets and also creating that greater ease of investing for our future investors. Also, the Ravencoin network and its provision of sub-asset and derivative creation is particularly applicable for our individual private partnerships and for individual deed purchase and transfer outside the scope of our LPs. For anyone familiar with 1031 eligibility, our LPs are actually not eligible for 1031 since they're pooled interest, but individual private partnerships are. For those deeds or interests that are 1031 eligible, this is a really strong selling point from a tax standpoint, especially those in the process of a wealth event like the sale of a property. So creating derivative packages tied to specific deeds in an individual private partnership setting, we're excited to explore that kind of viability for 1031 transactions, again, especially with a younger audience. Derivatives can also allow us to gain co-investment for individual acquisitions that may fall outside the scope of our criteria for LPs or even private partnerships. We are mineral managers, so we understand when we see a good deal. And if we need co-investors, a digitized or tokenized securities interest could be a great place to find that quickly. Liquidity is also a huge selling point for tokenizing our interest. And that's not just for our partnership, but it's for our investors as well. Tokenization kind of provides a revolving door, both for us and for the investors that are choosing to come in and out. I would say a common objection to our funds is the length of the term. Private partnerships often have a 3, 5, 10-year lockup, although many target 3 to 5, but state 10 in sort of, a cover your bases kind of scenario. Access and providing our offerings on digital marketplaces also is going to increase brand awareness for our organization and for adjacent and future partnerships. We see this as a brand new landscape. We're excited to be amongst the earliest adopters, certainly within our sector, to establish a presence early in the adoption cycle. And again, ease of transacting and reporting is got to be one of the biggest drivers. A channel, we're moving the needle and capturing data is streamlined by the intrinsics of the security and the platform it's listed on. That's a huge selling point for us since we've got to keep compliant and we have to dot every I and cross every T as we're sort of gaining new investors through our vessels. And if you compare this to the current process of having, interest and a commitment pass through multiple stages after initial agreement, from signing subscription agreements to KYC and re-signing PPMs and then following through with the wire, these are things that are handled manually by me and it can take days or weeks from the verbal commitment. So obviously tokenized interest provide a more streamlined medium for this. So why would we use Ravencoin? It's simple. It's the obvious choice. Ravencoin is convenient, it's seamless, cost efficient, lightning fast, and it's directly tied to a major up and coming digital securities marketplace in T0. Cost efficiency in asset creation is very important, particularly to an emerging fund like ours, as is reliability and consistent transactional efficiency. We don't just want it to be affordable to kind of start up. We want it to be affordable both to transact on and for those coming in to get involved. We also want our derivatives and tokenized shares to work seamlessly with the rest of our partnership, and Ravencoin has a consistent track record of delivering the same kind of results throughout its life cycle. And then I would say on a macro view, the impending Ethereum 2.0 switch has got huge implications and is already seeing a net effect amongst GPU miners. A lot of miners are already turning their attention towards Raven, which bodes well in the long run for network consistency and improvement. And then, of course, there's DigiShares, right? The bridge for us. Yes, tokenization is convenient and cost-effective thanks to Ravencoin, but for SEC-registered partnerships, as Andrew kind of explained, that's just the tip of the iceberg. We have to consistently, and constantly make sure that we remain compliant. As a small fund, our time is often stretched beyond our capabilities and attention to detail is of utmost importance. So DigiShare's suite of services actually takes this project from A to B seamlessly while tying in all the necessary compliance, KYC, accounting, and administrative components that would ordinarily be left to our team to manage. So it's a real value add for a small partnership. And not to mention, they can assist us from the start with digital asset creation. Even though it is easy, it can be complex. So we're very happy that there's a team like that that's in place. With all that said, DigiShares is actually almost acting as a fund administrator, which can be another big line item expense for private partnerships. They sort of play that role for the movement and capture of data of securities in the digital realm. So as a niche platform focused on the creation and administration of digitized securities, we know our bases are covered by DigiShares from the get-go and tended to throughout the life of our working relationship, which allows our team to just continue to work hard on delivering consistent returns, marketing our organizations, and corresponding with current investors. So to kind of close before questions, we really see tokenization and tokenized real estate as a brand new frontier. We're excited to have a forward-thinking and kind of tech-savvy internal team that's high on crypto, and we're excited to position ourselves in the earliest days. The adoption and investment in tokenized digital securities can only grow over time. The accredited investors of tomorrow will have leveraged the power of the internet from the earliest days of their lives. It's kind of an adapt or die situation, and we're thinking we're really, really early in terms of this life cycle. But of course, we need all the help we can get. So obviously very grateful for DigiShares and their holistic suite of services to partnerships like ours. The vision is made seamless. Want to thank Tron Black and the Ravencoin team for dedicating themselves to building a truly decentralized, efficient, value-oriented platform. And I also want to give a shout out to my good friend, Jared McFadden, for introducing me to Ravencoin back during this crazy blizzard earlier this year. Would never have known about it without him. So happy to take questions.
Very nice. Well, we have time for one question because that was a very thorough presentation you made there.
Thank you.
It's very specific. What is your one-time and ongoing fees to investors?
So we charge a one-time 1% incorporation fee on all invested dollars, and then we charge a 2% recurring management fee per year on all our invested capital. There is also, as is standard amongst a lot of partnerships like us, there's a 25% back-in after a 1x recoup of capital. That's something that you're going to find consistently throughout any kind of mineral partnership. And to touch on some adjacent aspects, we distribute quarterly, so that's 4 times a year. We are in the process of closing the raise for our second fund through the end of October. And our return profile is always targeting 15 to 20% annualized, but we've been beating our marks. Our first fund has returned 27% of committed capital in just 3 quarters.
All right. And there's a follow-up. As a fund, do you get audited, or is there any pushback from top 4 accounting firms on engaging tokenized firms?
So we haven't really explored that just yet. Again, this was kind of a forward-looking wireframe plan. Certainly, we're going to have to get to a couple of those sort of intrinsic accounting realities, and I know that the DigiShares team is well positioned to help us. We have also got a great attorney in New York that's also kind of crypto-minded as well. So kind of across the bridge when we come to it. But currently, our accounting standards are very rigid, as is the case for many SEC-registered partnerships.